Design Together, a podcast exploring how designers work together. I am your host, Abby Ryan Guido, a designer and educator working in Philadelphia, collaborating everywhere. Today is so special, I had to add a bonus episode to Season 2. It's also a chance for you all to send us some feedback on an idea to explore moving forward. I really enjoyed recording this season, and the episodes that really stood out to me were the ones with multiple guests, which made me think a little bit more about next season. And it kind of makes sense, since this is all about how designers work together, that having multiple guests on the show would lead to really great conversations. So an idea for next season is sharing stories of how teams work together, whether it be partners of a studio, designers and their clients, a creative mentor and their mentee, maybe a married couple who run a small studio, designers and developers. You get the gist. So please take a listen today and send us some feedback. Now for the show. Today we have with us two guests. Ben Greengrass, creative director of design agency ThoughtMatter in New York City, and his mentee, Heyward, a participant in the D&amp New Blood Shift New York 2021 program. Ben, I'd love to start with you and hear a little bit more about your path to becoming the creative director at ThoughtMatter.
Thank you, Abby. Yes. So I've been in the industry now for 20 plus years. Obviously by my accent, you could tell I originate from the UK. And my history really is kind of, I went through design school as the traditional method. So basically kind of not really sure exactly what I wanted to do and how to become a graphic designer. I actually started off making ceramics and thinking about it from a fine art angle, but then entered through graphic design, did the traditional sort of 4 or 5 years of study. And at that time I was in Leeds in the UK, so I worked for a couple of agencies in Leeds, and for a long time worked on lots of exciting projects, CPG, print, corporate identity, all the stuff, and then had an opportunity to head up a studio in New York City from a company that I was working at. So they were kind of building a studio in New York. So I was transplanted over there initially for a small amount of time, for 6 months, but New York's, as a lot of people know, New York's a city that grabs you, and once you're there, it's hard to leave. So that was 11 years ago, and I'm still here now. So I worked for that company for 7 or so years. Really, there came a point when I felt I wanted to think about the work that I was doing and the impact the work was having. So I started to, look around and see what the opportunities were and figure out what my next step was. And, kind of being in the industry for a while, you think about, your pathway to kind of what you're going to do next and how you're going to have an impact. And there was 1 or 2 connections I had with the company of ThoughtMatter. So the managing director, the client services director, they worked at a previous agency with me. And we got a conversation going, and I was really interested in what they had to say and the kind of work they did. So, one thing led to another, and we ended up kind of sort of collaborating. I came over to ThoughtMatter 2.5 years ago, and sort of really with the intent to figure out what kind of impact the design could have, and what kind of newer, different clients we could work with, and really think about what the opportunities were in design. I think for me it was really about kind of exploring something different. And ThoughtMatter has a lot of clients in the social impact world. We really we call it work worth doing. We judge our kind of projects and our passions by the kind of work like that. So if it's work worth doing, then we'll do it. And so we kind of we got together, and we, like I said, I've been there 2.5 years now, and thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah, that kind of, one of my next questions was what makes ThoughtMatter a different type of agency? I think just even in the name, you hear it and that it's not the typical mission of an agency. So when someone asks what is different there?
Yeah, so I think we have a bunch of very, very different people in the agency, very diverse set of perspectives. lots of different backgrounds. Some people do come from the more traditional big agency world. Others not so much. Others come from sort of, like we have, our founder, for instance, was a journalist originally. He founded that company. He wasn't embedded in the design world, but he, kind of had this notion that design could have an impact, and built the company around, that idea. And when you look across the board, I think that does make ThoughtMatter different in a way that we think differently about things. We approach things. There's no formula for what we do really. Like every agency has a process. Every agency has a way of thinking. But I think we do really well at kind of connecting with our clients, like-minded clients that we resonate with, and then really thinking about kind of how we could take each challenge, differently. I think we're very curious. I think the level of curiosity is through the roof at ThoughtMatter. We ask questions, we challenge everything, we look for unexpected angles, we look for the spaces in between. So it's a bit, it's to me it felt like a real opportunity to work somewhere that was different and wasn't always, a cookie cutter method of a way of taking on a project or a client.
Yeah, I love hearing about that, because I think, a lot of, companies out there, you kind of fall into your routine of, okay, this is how the onboarding always goes, and this is who's in the room, and this is how we work with people. But when we're talking about collaboration, depending on who we're working with, the idea that you can have unique approaches is really powerful, and I think really important, and shows in the work that you produce. And I know you kind of talked to this a little bit about the diversity of perspectives. When it comes to collaborating, and you think back on past collaborations with clients and with colleagues, are things different at ThoughtMatter? Do you approach it differently than you did in your past?
I think we do it in a similar way. We're not sat here saying that we have a whole unique way of doing things and it's different from anybody else. But I think what we do really well is because the way we think about our clients and the kinds of projects we want to work on and the kinds of people we want to work with, you already have an advantage out of the gate. You're tighter as a kind of, the relationship's tighter. You can really sort of ask the hard questions. You can get really close to the client. We did particularly well with that. In the first sort of, especially the first 18 months when I was there. Obviously, a pandemic has dropped, and it's kind of, it's thrown us all into these little Zoom windows where we're doing things, in that way now. There's the signs obviously of coming out of that. But I feel like even though we've been running workshops and we've been having these sessions over Zoom, I feel like we still have that kind of more intimate connection with the clients and the relationships that we build, and I think some things actually have been done better through the pandemic by actually really having to concentrate and really connect. So I feel, hopefully that answers the question, but yeah, I feel like I wouldn't say we do it have a different process per se, but I think we spend a lot of time really getting to know the client and the project, and that coupled with the knowing it's the projects that we want to work on, or the work we want to do, and work worth doing, I think makes a difference.
So I want to talk a little bit about mentoring. And Ben, I'm going to start with you. What drove you to apply to become a mentor through the D&AD shift program?
D&AD. So, but it's hard to say, yeah. But D&AD, D&AD was is a institution in design in England, I would say. It's very well renowned. I spent my career wanting to win a D&AD pencil. It's the award that everybody wants to get hold of. And I think when I came to the US, sort of D&AD was a little bit sort of on the back burner. I don't think that they had put their feelers out as strongly as they have now, as far as kind of their influence in the US, because it was still very much a UK-based organisation. But I started to see, sort of that evolve over the last sort of, I guess, 7 or 8 years. Sort of they were making connections. They were doing things within the US. They were making these sort of inroads. And I'd heard about Shift through, obviously, the collateral they'd put online, but also I'd gone to, I was invited to one of the galas, or one of the, I guess they call it a gala. It's like the celebration at the end when everybody shows their work, and you get, everybody in the industry gets to see the talent. And Yeah, and I was very interested in it, you know, and as it relates to my desire to be a mentor, I wanted a part of that, you know. I knew about D&AD. I could see there was great talent that wasn't necessarily getting the access it deserved, you know, because that's the big thing about the Shift program. It really helps you access this pool of talent that you don't necessarily get to see all the time. So I was interested.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because I think that some listeners out there, again, since they are, you know, a newer presence in the States, and I know a big presence in New York for sure, but for people outside of there, what is the Shift program? What's different than other mentoring programs?
So the Shift program basically showcases talent that doesn't necessarily get the same opportunity as traditional talent, right? So you know, as a creative director at a design agency, you know, sometimes you're guilty very much of tapping into the, you know, especially in New York. Let's think of the big schools in New York like Parsons, FIT, SBA. Those places. You there by default you will go there to find that talent. What Shift does is helps access to talent that can't necessarily go through that system, whether it's through socioeconomic, you know, hardship, or whether it's, you know, just not being able to get the chance to get into that world. But we know there's talent out there, right? And we you know, and if you go to one of those, if you, like I did when I went to that event, you know, I could see the talent. You know, there's printmakers, there's photographers, there's graphic designers, there's DJs, there's all sorts of talent there that you kind of think, right, I want to tap into that a little bit. So that's what they do really well, you know, and they invite the industry in. And I think when the program started, you know, there was lots of big agencies signed up for it, your RGAs, your McCanns, you know, you reel off the listed agencies. And I think for me, when I saw that, you know, obviously I wanted part of that, but I thought there was an opportunity for ThoughtMatter to come in and to add something a little bit different. And so I pitched the idea of impact, really around kind of, you know, social, personal, professional impact. And I, you know, I went, and they wanted me to do a presentation to the Shift program this year. And I wasn't sure whether, you know, I would be a mentor, because even though you do a presentation and you enter that world, you're not necessarily guaranteed to become a mentor.
Okay.
So I did that, and then ended up sort of, you know, kind of applying, really. They ask you to apply to be a mentor, knowing that there's probably like 100 other people applying. So you do it, and then, you know, I think I was one of the lucky ones that then got paired up with somebody. And that's D'Angelo. So D'Angelo and I were thrown together, and hence that mentorship started. So to answer your question, really, I think my desire was to tap into that world, to use some of my experience to kind of give back a little bit to design, but also really excited to work with somebody, and the unknown as well. Not really knowing who that was another driver. I was really excited about having to kind of learn on the go and actually get something from it myself.
I think it's a great point to jump over to D'Angelo. Hi, D'Angelo. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Abby.
I would love if you started a little bit and told us how you came to sign up yourself for the program. What's a little bit of your background story?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and I've always been into art, whether I was drawing on my schoolwork or painting, just doing different things. And over time, going into high school, I got into different programs, specifically expanding the walls at the Studio Museum in Harlem, which was really focused on photography. And then moving into college and going into, or majoring in fine arts, and then my concentration was photography. You know, being in school, after some time I had left, and I was just looking for something different. You know, I wasn't exactly sure what that was, but I knew I wanted to be somewhere in the art and design world. And eventually I landed at Made in Brownsville, which was a nonprofit. And there is where I really got thrusted into graphic design and learning about the industry and all of the things that's going on. And so I also discovered the shift program, D&AD, which was brought to us through the program manager. And I knew this only comes around every once a couple of years or so. And me being someone who's always looking, at what's the next move and never settling, I was like, I know I have to do this. So I applied, and it was during the time of the pandemic and everything, so things were on pause. But after a couple of months or so, I found out that I was actually shortlisted, which means they liked what they saw, and they wanted to meet me and move me up the list. And lo and behold, I was a part of the shift program.
That's amazing. Would you tell us a little bit about how that program worked? I know that there is some collaboration with the other, can I call them shifters? Is there a name?
Yes.
For the other members, are they shifters?
You got
with
it.
the other shifters? All right. I love it. How did that work? What were those projects like, and how was it to collaborate with other younger people getting into this industry?
As Ben explained, the shift program is really for young creatives who were going along this unconventional path. So you got about 50 people who might have applied, and then that list is then it's trimmed down, and it comes to about 18 creatives. And so from there, we are working on these different briefs assigned to us, and I got the chance to work with Adidas, Spotify, Refinery 29, and those were some of the, organizations or businesses that we got the chance to work with, and they provided us with some briefs, and we were actually paired up. There was 3 of us in a group, and depending on the brief, we switched teams as well, but the chance to collaborate and meet these different people doing a whole bunch of different things, whether they were a digital artist or they were more hands-on. It was really great to be able to see and get a sense of everything else that's going on in the world.
So when you were put together on these teams, what type of other activities and instruction were you part of? Were they... I know that Ben came in as a guest lecturer. Were there other guests coming in? What kind of guidance were you given as you were working on these briefs?
Absolutely. So we got the chance to speak with different professionals within the industry, whether they were more on the operations side or they were actually creatives, creative directors, designers, people who manage the accounts and whatnot. So not only did we get a chance for them to present to us, we got a chance to ask them some questions, afterwards, and get a better idea of what their specific role might entail, and how is it possible for us, to jump in and get a chance.
So, Ben, at what point does the mentor join this process?
I think all the mentors, some of the mentors have done the presentations, and then it kind of overlaps towards the end of the program. So I think the theory really was about kind of connecting up with one of the shifters, and then applying mentorship sort of beyond the program.
Okay.
So, it wasn't that D'Angelo and I worked on a project as such. I mean, the project was basically Project D'Angelo. It was like, kind of, what does D'Angelo need from this, and how can I help to, have these conversations with him and figure out kind of, sort of a pathway forward. So, I think I forget the exact cadence, but I think it was 2 or 3 weeks towards the end of the program. I remember going to see the online virtual gala and kind of, the kind of interacting with everybody and all the shifters and all the people there. But beyond the end of the program, that's when the work really started for me and D'Angelo, and we started to kind of figure out kind of what we were going to do and how we were going to plan out our attack through the mentorship.
And so how did that start? How did the conversation go? What was kind of the plan when you got together to say, like, okay, how is this going to function?
D'Angelo and I were chatting about it earlier, actually. It was kind of really sort of, I mean, the thing I actually really liked about it was that kind of unknown. there was no blueprint, right? There was no sort of, this is what you've got to do going forward. It was kind of like, you're going to be put together with somebody. And I think, D'Angelo, I think, has expressed a lot, an interest in the agency world. And, I've been at agencies a long time. So I feel like, they made some sort, we never discussed this, but I feel like they made some sort of connection between us. And then, we were kind of thrown in a Zoom window together, and it was kind of Ben meet D'Angelo, D'Angelo meet Ben. And we started to figure each other out. And it was really, kind of actually quite good not to know too much, just to kind of get in there and start to have the conversations, figure out what D'Angelo needed from this mentorship. And I think it was like a 12-week period, something like that. And that was it. It was kind of, you guys go off and you can kind of start to figure it out and figure out what you end up doing. So, we kind of sat down, we figured out some sort of rough idea of a plan of kind of what we would start to, kind of structure our mentorship, the mentorship relationship. And, we went from there, really.
And D'Angelo, have you had mentors in the creative field before? Is this your first experience being a mentee?
I would say yes. This is my first experience. Yeah.
Was there any hesitation, or after completing the rest of the program, were you kind of ready to get that kind of one-on-one guidance and develop this relationship?
There wasn't any hesitation, and following the program, I was the mentor-mentee relationship was supposed to continue for a couple of months after, and it did. And yes, I was looking forward to working with Ben and him just giving me a better sense of the industry and what it's about.
And was that how a lot of your early meetings were? Was it kind of talking, Ben sharing his experience, giving you the chance to ask questions?
Exactly. Ben extended himself, and I could use him as a sounding board, whether, it was still during the program where we were working on projects, and I could probably ask him about, how would this go, or what about this?
And then I know that after the program, D'Angelo, you were also brought on as an intern at ThoughtMatter. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, Ben, what led you to that decision? That's definitely the kind of next step in the mentor-mentee relationship.
Yeah, well, I mean, so one thing so the plan we made was basically the way that I formulated it in my mind was it was kind of in three parts. So I wanted to make sure that D'Angelo had a real perspective of an agency. So, and I think my style of mentorship isn't like I'm going to sit there and tell him everything, and I'm going to be this kind of this design sage that's going to like impart everything. I know what I know, and like I have experience to share, but I wanted him to get a real connection with the agency. So what I devised for the perspectives part of it was to have conversations with all the different elements of ThoughtMatter, in all the different disciplines. So, D'Angelo every week would almost interview strategy, design, accounts, everybody really, everybody design operations, everybody in the world, and kind of get the answers he needed from those people. So there was this element of one-to-one, but there was also an element of ThoughtMatter. We're very close family at ThoughtMatter. We love to get involved in everything. So we kind of wanted to bring everybody on board on this and kind of have that help D'Angelo get that perspective. Also, the second part of this was kind of like learning some things, right? So what can D'Angelo learn that he would be really passionate about learning? So one example is strategy. Kind of understanding the connection between strategy and design and how we think about strategy and all those other things. So we paired him with our strategy director who took him on a presentation, gave him the 101 on strategy, and really kind of laid that bare a little bit about kind of, how that all works. An insight into experiential. We have an experiential designer. So again, we set him up with Jason, our experiential designer, who kind of helped him, kind of figure out some things there as well. And then the final part of the jigsaw was really about what D'Angelo would take away from this mentorship, as far as something that would set him up for the industry, something that would superpower his efforts as he moved into the industry, and really sing about his talents, because that obviously it's no mean feat to get on that D&AD shift program. So there's, and you could see in his work he has great talent. So how does he amplify that? I think it was all about amplification, the third part, and how we amplified D'Angelo. So we worked on his, we have a strong digital set of designers at ThoughtMatter. So we worked on his website. We made sure that he didn't hide his talent. He didn't hide his talent, and he shouted from the rooftop. So we built the website and helped him do that, and with the idea that he would move into the industry. But I think what led him to the internship was because we were so tight and we had all these conversations going on. It just felt like, why don't we do it? Why don't we bring him in 5 days a week and have him intern with us as well? Kind of have him. He's a great illustrator, so we wanted him to do some illustration work with us, and that led to some client project opportunities, and it just felt that why not do it, and kind of if you're gonna do it, you might as well go big and do it properly.
So D'Angelo, thinking about those interviews, how did that go, getting to talk to so many different people in different parts of the agency? Did it impact the way you think about being in an agency yourself, or your thoughts on where you might go next?
Absolutely. I got a lot of great information from some of the other team members, and through those interviews, I got some great advice as well. But I'd say one of the things that stuck with me most is do what brings up fear, or do things that make you afraid, right? And that stuck with me for the longest. But from those interviews, I learned that the industry, the design world, is much larger and diverse than what I previously thought. You have these different agencies that may focus on a specific field within design. Like some may be focused on medical, others are dealing with social impact or environmental, right? So I've learned so much, and I would say that I definitely took away a lot.
So it gave you kind of an understanding more. I think that's definitely something I hear. I teach, and so I hear this from my students. We kind of think like, okay, you're either a designer or you're a writer. Like, we don't really think about the vast amount of opportunities that are out there within the creative world.
Yes, and those roles that you hear, they may differ depending on where you end up, right? And you have these larger agencies and companies, and then you have the small or more intimate ones like ThoughtMatter.
That's awesome. And so transitioning to the internship, this was still all virtual. No one was in the office. Is that right?
That's correct.
It probably was a little smoother since you had, virtually met a lot of the people through the interviews. But how was that, jumping into an internship 5 days a week, working virtual?
So I laugh because everything has been virtual, and I got asked this before, and I was like, well, I've been used to the remote or Zoom world already. And so coming from D&AD, like that was the first cohort that was all virtual. Even our ceremony, it was remote. So it was definitely an experience, but it all worked out, and it was wonderful.
And Ben, you mentioned that D'Angelo has some illustration chops. Was he able to do any illustration work during his internship?
Yes, he was. Yeah. I think he's had 4 or 5 different illustrations for us in different formats and different guises. So yeah, definitely. One point I would jump on as well is as far as the virtual world. I think one thing I noticed about the D&AD shift program was how the camaraderie amongst the shifters, right? And it was kind of really good to see how they were like lifting each other and working with each other on the program. Because being virtual, you do worry sometimes that you're not having those connections, and you're not as tight with people because you don't see people and all those other things. But the final gala was very, had a lot of energy. They were talking to each other and really kind of lifting each other, and they felt like they wasn't virtual. It was actually one of the best virtual events. I would say this is one of the best virtual events that I've been to in this pandemic, because the way they did it, there was a lot of networking going on, speed networking, but there was also, you could also feel the energy, and you could feel the excitement around kind of, what was going on within the program, and the steps they'd made and the work they'd done. So to me, that was really interesting. I've been thinking hard about that and how you can replicate that in different ways, because that is one thing that we're sorely missing at the moment. And I know the green shoots of hope are coming, and we're starting to figure out how we're going to get back to some form of normality. But being able to create online, be able to have energy online, and to do some of the things you would normally do in person, I think actually testament to that program.
And I know that D'Angelo's internship is coming to an end soon. D'Angelo, what are you thinking about now after having all of these experiences? Are you thinking of hitting the job market in the industry? Are you looking to further kind of your education within it? Well, what's next?
Good question. So, actually, I will soon be starting to work with ThoughtMatter full time.
Wow, that's so exciting! Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's one reason why we met in person in the studio today for the first time, was to sign on the dotted line. So
wow. Well, I'm so excited that I'm able to share this news. And I know you all are in the office. And D'Angelo, are you looking forward to the days of being able to come into the office on a more regular basis?
I am. Yes.
Yeah. That's so awesome. So I want to just jump back for 1 second. Were all the members of Shift this year in New York, or were they able to open it up to a larger audience because it was virtual?
So it was, all of the members, I believe, were either in New York or during the time they were traveling. So you had some folks maybe in another state, but
sure.
Yeah, I would say it was mainly in New York.
Do you feel like this group of shifters will be part of your network moving forward? Are you all planning on getting together? Are you kind of seeing where they end up as well?
Yes, absolutely. We are still in contact. We have group chats. We're on Instagram, and we were planning on getting together and having, a little celebration of our own. So
it's really great to hear Ben talk about how the connection that you all had, because I think we've all struggled with that through this. So I'm really happy for you that you were able to have that as well during these times that were really tough for a lot of us. D'Angelo, what are the takeaways from working with Ben? You get paired with him. I'm imagining it's kind of random on your end. They put you together. How looking back are you? What do you think about the whole experience with Ben?
Some of the takeaways, I would say there's definitely a boost in confidence in my creative self and abilities. And then also a better sense of where I want to be, or where I will end up within the industry.
And what is the plan at ThoughtMatter? What is your position? What kind of work will you be doing?
So I will be joining as a junior designer,
Great. And Ben, kind of back to you, I know from myself and from hearing you that becoming a mentor, there's, the interest in discovering new talent and finding people that are on this non-traditional path. But what else are you taking away from this experience?
As I mentioned before, I've been in the industry a while now, and this really is probably the first time that I've done a real one-to-one mentorship, because a lot of the work I've done before has been through schools, has been through bigger groups of people. So I guess the exciting part for this for me was the one-to-one aspect, right? And the fact that it could be a little bit more intensive, a little bit more kind of sort of a relationship, I think. And that's something, I definitely want to pursue more of in the future and do again. But I think, just doubling back to what we touched on earlier, I think the fact that there was no blueprint to this, and the fact that it was, a kind of a sort of almost like a discussion and an open dialogue to figure out what D'Angelo wanted, what D'Angelo needed. I think that was great, and what I got from it was kind of, sort of that, I got a lot out of the fact that there was this unknown, and I was kind of, having these conversations and, learning from D'Angelo as well, understanding kind of, somebody from his perspective, kind of, the thoughts and feelings of a kind of a young designer coming through the industry, not sure, kind of what they want and where they want to go, and trying to help, kind of, inform that, and see, what the opportunities were, really.
D'Angelo, for other people listening who might be on a non-traditional path to the industry and looking into programs like this, what type of advice do you have to someone entering it, and how they approach it and how they approach being a mentee?
Oh, I would say to keep doing what you're doing. Somewhere along the line, you and your work will be recognized. And I would also advise them to own their work, and find their creative voice.
That's great. And Ben, what about you? For anyone out there who wants to become a mentor, what type of advice do you give them? I
mean, I can only talk from my personal experience, and I feel like, well, I'm going to call it philosophy. I don't even know if it is a philosophy, but I came at this not wanting to be this person that was trying to sort of tell everybody what was right, what to do, And again, I've spent a lot of my career kind of figuring out as I've gone along and figuring out, making up as I go along. So I kind of wanted to come at it from, whatever you need, whatever I can do to help, that's where I wanted to come from. That's how I wanted to enter this relationship. So I feel like, sort of, there's a lot in that, really, and thinking about a young designer who is not sure what they want to do. I think you just got to get in there and try things. You just got to get in there and experience things. D'Angelo spoke about kind of starting off in a kind of a fine art world and then sort of kind of moving in different places. And I think it's a really good story of just kind of rolling your sleeves up, getting stuck in, and kind of seeing where things can take you. And then at some point you realise, well, really where you fit and what you want to do, and kind of how you can then move forward. So yeah, I don't think the journey's ended yet. I think there's still kind of, this is the first rung on the ladder for D'Angelo, but I feel like, there's sort of, definitely a power in kind of discovery and finding out just kind of by getting on and doing things, and exploring. I think just trying things. I think that's for me is the key, because I never knew what I wanted to do when I was at design school. I had no idea really, so I kind of ended up, kind of moving through it, making it up, and getting to where you get to.
I love when you're talking about this, Ben, because it just shows that you're so open and you're being honest and you're approachable. And I think that that's what I'm taking away hearing the story, is that it can be intimidating for someone in D'Angelo's position to be paired with this creative director of this great agency, and I love when you're talking about, you're just sharing your experiences and what you've picked up, and that you didn't always know exactly what was right, and showing that vulnerability, I'm sure helped create this really great relationship between you two, and obviously great turnout since he'll be joining you all there as a designer. So that's really exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, as I said, that was always the dream, it's just to kind of get that relationship going and see where it took us.
Well, that's really, really amazing. Well, I want to thank you both so much for being here today. And I do want to make sure everyone knows, if you want to check out the work of ThoughtMatter, you can go to thoughtmatter.com. D'Angelo, would you also share your website? I didn't mark that one down. I want to make sure people can check out your work as well.
Absolutely. It is Vonyc.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you, and good luck with the new job.
All right. Thank you, Abby.
And thank you so much, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for listening. If you are enjoying our show, please post us a review on whatever podcast streaming platform you use. To learn more about us, check out our website at designtogetherpod.com.